Hello, the Pioneer viewers. The harsh winds of war continue to blow unabated between Ukraine and Russia. While the balances are changing on the front line, a new attack by the Ukrainian army has been on the agenda as a major development that could directly affect the course of the war. In recent days, one of the pinpoint operations organized by Kyiv has caused great repercussions in military and political circles in Russia. The target of this attack was a senior Russian commander, which sent shockwaves through the Kremlin. For Russia, which has been losing critical military figures one by one since the beginning of the war, this latest blow means a great deal. But how will this incident change Moscow's war strategy? What message is Ukraine sending to Russia with such moves? Especially in recent weeks, the Ukrainian army has been shaking the Russian defense lines with effective attacks in the occupied territories. Ukraine is proving more and more every day that it can be effective not only on the front line, but also in Russia's interior. The location of this latest attack is remarkable. Kursk. The region is strategically located for the Russian army, and this attack here reveals the security weaknesses of the Russian military leadership. The targeting of a senior commander means a serious threat to Russia's internal security and chain of command. Moreover, this attack further highlights the difficulties faced by Moscow in the field and clearly exposes the weaknesses of the Russian military to the world public opinion. However, this attack not only sends a military message, but also shakes the political balances within the Kremlin. As the war drags on, tensions between the different centers of power in Moscow are growing. How will Vladimir Putin and the military elites around him strategize in the face of such attacks in Ukraine? To what extent will the Russian military's effectiveness on the battlefield diminish if it continues to lose its command echelon? Also, how will these attacks affect Putin's authority? Since the start of the war, the Russian military leadership has tried to maintain control on the ground by sending its commanders to the front line. However, the increasing number of such attacks by Ukraine proves that Russian commanders are not safe on the front line. How the Kremlin responds to this attack could be a critical threshold for the future of the war. What steps will the Russian military take to improve military security? How will Ukraine's surprise attacks upset Russia's military plans? Let's take a look at the developments together. But before we move on to our report, here is a small reminder. The Pioneer team is completely real. None of my teammates or me are artificial intelligence. Although artificial intelligence is very advanced, it's still not as good as us. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our daily reports and explanations. We do read all the comments you leave on our videos, so please continue to share your ideas about our content. Tell us in the comments what content you'd like to see on the Pioneer channel. And now let us begin if you're ready. The Pioneer reports. As Russia's aggressive behavior in Ukraine continues, the effects of the war are being felt more and more deeply in the upper echelons of the Kremlin and Russian society. As the war is approaching its third year, the Russian army has suffered heavy losses not only on the front line, but also in the administration. The latest attacks in the Kursk region has once again demonstrated this reality. A senior Russian commander and an officer were killed in an attack by Ukrainian forces. This incident shows that the war is no longer limited to military operations, but also clearly reveals the fragilities within the Kremlin. In particular, the targeting of a 52-year-old officer who was about to return to the front line shows that Ukraine's war strategy favors attacks targeting the Russian command structure. While the Kremlin refrained from making an official statement after this attack, Vladimir Putin's weakness on the battlefield has become more apparent with this loss. Initially aiming for a quick and decisive victory, Moscow is now facing a serious dilemma, both on the front line and in the diplomatic arena. In order to sustain the war, Putin is putting pressure not only on military cadres, but also on civilian administrators to take an active role on the front line. The Kremlin argues that in order for the war to be sustainable in the long term, names in the state administration should also be directed to military roles. However, many officials prefer to serve in safer areas rather than directly on the front line. Some serve in drone operations, while others provide logistical support. One of the most notable exceptions is Sergei Efremov, deputy governor of Primorsky Krai. Efremov, who lost his life over the weekend when his vehicle hit a landmine, was shown as one of the symbols of the Kremlin's patriotism and sacrifice propaganda. Efremov, who had played an active role at the front since the first days of the war, was recorded as one of Moscow's most senior casualties. While the Kremlin usually tried to conceal such losses, Efremov's death was publicized and presented as a hero for propaganda purposes. However, there are serious questions about the effectiveness of such propaganda on the Russian public. The Russian people, who are becoming more and more aware of the realities of the war and the extent of the losses, are increasingly skeptical of the Kremlin's narratives. Efremov's military background was remarkable. After completing his studies at Ryazan, Russia's elite college for airborne officers, in 2022, when the Russian army was in retreat in Ukraine, he formed a volunteer unit called the Tigers and joined the front line. After fighting with this unit for a year, he returned to civilian duty in 2023 and was appointed deputy governor of Primorsky Krai. However, when the course of the war changed, he decided to rejoin the army in 2024. In particular, the large-scale Ukrainian offensive against the Kursk region in August 2024 accelerated Efremov's decision to return to the front. However, this decision had fatal consequences for him. The death of Efremov, who was killed in the attack in Kursk, shows that Russia is now under threat, even in safe areas. This represents not only a military, but also a psychological and political blow for the Kremlin. This war, launched by Putin, was an operation that was initially planned to end in victory in a short time. However, at this point, Russia is suffering heavy losses, both on the front line and at the administrative level. Economic sanctions imposed by the West, increasing military failures, and internal political conflicts are seriously hampering Moscow's war strategy. Efremov's death revealed the predicament not only of the Russian army but also of the Kremlin. Although the Russian administration tries to cover up such losses with propaganda, the true face of the war is becoming more and more evident every day. If even the Kremlin's top officials are not safe on the ground, it's clear how much risk ordinary soldiers are at.